Hello, Eugene,
Hi, Valerie.
and today we're getting into our fourth episode of Perspectives, where we look at things from different angles, understanding how your perspective can change your perception. In the last episode, we discussed what is trust and how to be able to trust people and feel there's no need to be in control or control the situation and allow trust to come through. Eugene, what do you think if you open to trust, does it make you vulnerable?
First of all, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. And if you're open to trust, I think since we're all connected as human beings and as creatures on this planet, trust is kind of pathway or channel to build relationship and maintain that connection. Uh, it's really harder to delve into that from perspective that trust immediately equals being vulnerable and weak. It's probably the way we've been developing as humankind in recent centuries. There's been a lot of dramatic negative episodes when people opened up for trust and ended up in a bad place. So it's kind of easier to stay overprotective about yourself and about trusting anyone rather than trusting, because you in a way going into unknown territory, and there might be unexpected threats to to your to your life in a way.
So, in that perspective, when we talk about trust and being vulnerable, the thoughts of protecting and fear of being open comes up, and in that way, it shows that people usually get into defensive mode to protect something that takes away them from trusting people.
Yeah, it's kind of the algorithm there that if you start trusting someone first, you're opening up the doors and into your world, into your mindset, into your thinking, into your strengths and weaknesses, fears and preferences, and when making that step first, you don't know what's going to be the mutual attitude and behavior from the other person. So you need to step into this unknown realm and for some time be there alone, expecting how the other person is going to behave towards you. So it's basically a conversation with yourself, and then depending on how the other person behaves, maybe there will be mutual trust and it will build up into something beautiful, or you may end up vulnerable and alone there.
So for you, when you talk about vulnerability, the fear of being alone comes up in a way that you can be not accepted, or
It's not necessarily about acceptance. It's I think the deeper level of that is whether you're accepting yourself, because uh, not people are afraid of loneliness because probably they are not at best terms with themselves, and it scares them to be for a long time to be just with themselves, or not seeing the possibility to interact with someone. Things like happened during pandemic, where people were forced to be with themselves, or even with their families, and some of them realize they're not at good terms with themselves or with close people that they consider to be close prior to pandemic hit. I think that the primary fear there is to face yourself first of all.
so when we started talking about trust and being open to people, the fear of vulnerability comes through with your desire to protect. And then when we discuss how if we are vulnerable, we can stay and be alone with ourselves by opening up. And then you say that during the pandemic, there was a lot of fears of people being surrounded with themselves, facing their own reality, made them fear of loneliness. And now we go from trusting people to be vulnerable to open into the loneliness, and why people are fear that they're gonna be ended up alone and there was no one to share.
Yeah, again, it all comes down to can we accept ourselves? Can we deal with ourselves? Can we deal with with the fact who we actually are? Because when pandemic was kind of over and people rushed into their back to normal type of lives, and what they actually were doing, they were fleeing from what they've seen during facing themselves or facing their close people within households, and they were rushing into the traffic jams, into the offices, into the business trips, flights, in the way they were doing before the pandemic. So, and I'm not saying about everyone, but most of the majority of people were happy to get back to normal, because rushing somewhere helps you to escape from talking to yourself, discovering your inner world or who you actually are, and it's a good explanation and excuse for escaping from that exercise.
Thank you so much. So today in this episode we covered the perspective of how facing yourself and your vulnerability takes you to a different place in accepting who you are. And during the pandemic, people had been in a close contact with themselves, and the fear of loneliness came up for them, where we can discuss in the next episode of what's behind this and why people are so scared of facing themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie.